Well, 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 ladies and gentlemen, our bracket is filling up. We only have one more quarterfinal to go before we lock in the results of Acropolis number 4's third Tribunal stage into that semifinal spot. One of these two players will make it there, and I think everybody knows who the favorite is. It's going to be Newt in the top right, our Dark Sapphire-looking Terran. Going to be going for that bio opener, as he often does, versus Zerg. And it's Kenoli. The Zerg in the bottom right is our pumpkin player. And he will be going for what looks to be some kind of, maybe a delayed pool start. I'm not entirely sure. You know, these players are probably coming in a little bit cold. We're recording this around 2 p.m. in the afternoon. Of course, it must be in the afternoon if I'm saying p.m. But, you know, the classic one, it's like 5 a.m. in the morning or whatever. That's what people say. And with a pool start, with gas being mined, we know it's going to be a Larvosk follow-up, but Kenoli wants to be on the safer side versus, you know, Newt's aggression. Something that we're testing on pre-release right now, but this is a match on release, is that essentially the way that the stockades have been working out is that they've kind of been pressuring with like a really fast first unit timing versus what Zerg can pick up. And rather than changing how Zerg work in the early game by making it so they can pick up units earlier, because I feel like that would be maybe a more volatile direction to go, one of the things we've decided to test is a little bit of a slower stockade. So now the build time of the stockade and the fulcrum are the same, but obviously the stockade provides a better value prop for resources because it's cheaper. So you can start it faster still, but it just doesn't come online as fast as before. So that is not active in this version of the game. Additionally, the only other change to the bio plays that we've been seeing is that Cyprians are a little bit more expensive, 75 minerals instead of 50. So you have to maybe get an economy online a little bit better. It also brings back the idea of perhaps going for Savants as a more cost-efficient unit comparatively. So we will see an expansion early on for Kenoli. Obviously, all those changes that I just mentioned, just sort of observations about how the game state are going. I'm not really sold that there's like a problem with the game state currently. You know, that might be a funny dev bias, but I don't really think that there's like a glaring issue. I think, you know, some of that is going to be down to player execution and skill. But since these are the players we got, you know, we do have some pro player representation. I'm sure there's going to be lots of developments now and again. But for now, we're seeing where it goes. Just have an idea. So an anchor is on the way. Will float in and perhaps cause some trouble for Kenoli, as of course Newt is midway through the map with Harakans and Mavericks. And I'm looking forward to seeing what the follow-up is, if there's going to be a follow-up, because obviously the anchor... I mean, listen, Newt's a very technical player sometimes. He can do quite a lot of macro stuff in the mid-stages of the game, get up to really nice compositions, but he also likes his early game attacks. I wouldn't necessarily call them cheeses. They're just unconventional. So the anchor is done. He's actually waypointing the units over. This indicates he's going to use it as an option to just straight up elevator his entire army into the base. And this could be very, very deadly for Kenoli, who's moving out with all of his Quasilisks and isn't currently making any more. He does have some back home, but he's not scouting out for this at all. This is way earlier than you would normally hit with some sort of air unit drop, you know, some sort of more conventional thing. And now, with the Quas moving across, this puts Newt in a difficult position. He has put himself into this spot where it feels like he must hold as best he can. An anchor is being constructed in the main base. The rallies have been reset. Elevator in is going to be a slow-going affair with only 4 transport space, and the Zerg are already on top of the production, blowing past it completely and going after the units inside the main base. Look at this. We've already lost a Maverick due to some, you know, substandard micro, and only now do we see more military units being made. Kenoli realizes something's up. He's got a couple of Quas on location. He's making a lot of really road cores, but this could be the upset move with the Masons being pulled off the line. Has Newt flown too close to the sun? A lot of minerals still in the deck for Kenoli. The units are not actually being landed over here. He needs to support his army on the front line, and the Harakans stay alive. The Masons have bullied up everything over here as well. Holy moly, the reinforcements didn't go. Kenoli, just like that, is down in the doldrums. No larva production really to speak of. Worker count down to by 9. Was a lot of lost mining time, whereas he could just transfer to his natural. There is that. The anchor can't land on the Kagra, so it doesn't look like it's going to be able to back up the Terran bio, and that will be a wipe for that. Only 2 Mavericks and a Mason left over at that 4 o'clock location. Expansion going to be put down by Newt when he has the resources for it. Remember, he wasn't mining for a long time. He also hasn't harvested a lick of gas, so very committed in terms of tech position, and I love this play from Kenoli to start saturating the natural over, using it as his new main base, and putting down some static defense structures to be. Now, he isn't watching for the anchor to fly back over. In fact, I don't even know where his military units are. Did he... Where are they? Oh! He sent all of his units in as a little bit of a cheeky maneuver there. There's only two Mavericks here, so, and only two Drolets for them to heckle. So they can just evacuate. You know, he has hit saturation on the minerals just about for baseline, but oh my god! Snap decision from Newt, just chunks down that Ovolith immediately. It's destroyed. Kenoli having to make some quads. What a messy sort of game. You're going to load up the boys in the anchor, make it a little bit harder for the Zerg units to trade that cost efficiently. And now another squad moving across the map. It's Mavericks and Hurricanes. An anchor pretty wounded from the initial scuffle. I guarantee you there's ways that both players could have played the little hectic engagement a bit better. You can see Kenoli's happy to just trade down the first Zephyr Core. He'll clear that up without really that many consequences. Now he needs to scarper back to his natural, though. The two circuits are not going to be enough, and he was a little bit slow on the ball there. Looks like the Mavericks are going to be made mincemeat out of by the push here. The circuit staying alive, and yeah, the units are coming back in time to... This really shouldn't get too much more going. The Mavericks actually were not stimmed, so the circuit stayed alive a lot longer than they really needed to. And while they'll do a little bit of damage to the Quaz here, the Remorph is definitely going to put a timer on this attack, since if Newt tries to kill the K-Grunts, he's going to die to all of the pool units. Now, behind this, he is taking his expansion. Kenoli's got a lot of minerals in the bank. You can say the same about Newt, who, you know, lest we forget, is a Class 1 player. But maybe there's some volatility to his results, to his play, that mostly show up in tournament games, it feels like. I don't think too many people are going to soon forget his drubbing against Smarty Cakes as Protoss one tribunal ago, I believe it was. Or no, it was during the first tribunal, because that was back before Oya joined us for that tribunal, where he amazingly won 3-0 against every player he matched up against. Hanmano, Newt, Arbuz Budesh, just 9 wins in the deck, no losses, flawless execution. And now, I think this is going to be a little bit of a messier bracket, a messier tournament comparatively, but we're already seeing... I mean, listen, we saw 3 out of 4 opening matches reverse sweeps. And I was dreaming for it for Smarty Cakes against Doglived, but it just didn't happen. Now, let's see whether the semifinals will be queued up to deliver the quarterfinals. Already providing some action, that's for sure. Maybe some more straightforward results here and there. Obviously, you think about Shop Dog versus Sausage. But, you know, even the games there, like Game 1, I think pretty interesting. There's some good ideas there. But definitely a gulf between some of those players. And really, I mean, this tournament, in some ways, it's about the Terrans. It's about not only were they the most populous race to sign up, but the strongest players by ranking are Shopkeeper Dog and Newt. Newt is seed number 2 in the whole tournament, Shop Dog being seed number 1. So getting them to perform well, you know, that's a key detail right there. That's definitely a key detail. And if they meet each other in the finals, even though it will be TVT, I guarantee you it will be a weird-looking set of games. And the styles are just really different. Both players they've got hands. Both players hit the APM. You know, they hit the keys well. I feel like Newt has set himself up pretty nicely here with a defensive posture around his natural. Kenoli taking some time to scale up. And the onus starts to become on the Zerg the longer the game goes to do something to the Terran before they get the critical mass, right? And he's only got Hydras and Quas. He's not really going to be able to do too much here. What he wants to do maybe is try to whittle down the Hurricanes, but really he's just going to see if he can run away and see where that goes. Oh, okay. I was wondering what these star pads were doing this whole time. Turns out it's only 1 star pad, but it's a lot of Trojans. And so while there's a little bit of a pounce option with Kenoli struggling a little bit here with the Quaz, obviously trying to deal with the Hurricanes. And yeah, there you go, whittling him down, that makes sense. But, you know, the army is just kind of shoving forward, and eventually when Kenoli falls back enough, the Trojans can scoop this up. And, you know, 3 Trojans is not a small number of units, let's be real. That is going to be a hell of a lot of units. Now, one of them isn't fully loaded. There's no static defense here. He's got a lot of units at the natural, but he barely has any standing vigil over here. A couple of Hydras. So none of these Trojans are going to be destroyed. Hurricanes can start whittling down the hatch. I would not be surprised if we see the Hatteros go down, but instead he actually pulls away very quickly. He had a 4th Trojan show up, but he's not going to bother trying to doom drop. And the jig is up now. I feel like the first drop is always going to be the one that's got the highest chances of finding success. Yes, you can get into situations where, you know, you do 1 drop, you clear everything, you do another drop, your opponent is off kilter from the first one or something, and the second one is what happens. But if you don't get a successful first drop, the odds of you getting a successful second or third one, that feels really, really slim there. So drops are a really good win more tool. They can get you into a position where you win more. But as of right now, the Ant Seal's only now coming out. The Trojans were a pretty heavy investment. Is Newt going to be able to crack this position? We don't have a Khaz'trith yet. So no enhanced defense capabilities, but there are Bactylisks out. This is before their experimental buff on pre-release as well, so still same old Bactylisk from before. Definitely going to have a little bit of a struggle sometime. As you can see, the Trojans are earmarked for a drop, a hot drop in fact. And that is a pretty killer move. There's some Bactyls on the high ground inside the main base. The circuits are starting to crack, and there's not really a whole lot of DPS going down range into that backline. Sure, some of these guys are getting distracted by the guys on the high ground, but I don't think that's going to matter much, as Newt is still being able to crack this open. He's not really focusing on the static defense. Now he will. These units are going to get cleaned up, Ant Seal included, and a lot of Cyprians here to try to break the chains. Oh, but the eggs are body blocking for the Droleths out of that Larvosk CZ, and it looks like the Sim City pretty good there to save a lot of his workers. I thought he'd end up losing a lot more than that. At the end of the day, though, even though there's a lot of military units here for Kenoli, his economy has been struggling, and he has been spending a lot of workers on static defense, not just in the natural, but now we see 2 anti-drop defenses inside the main base. Shamans are starting to hit the field. That's going to be a point of power. We saw that as the Trojans were coming down. The Vestry was in construction as well. So, yeah, this is going to be a difficult hold for Kenoli. He is still in the game. He is making a lot of Bactylisks. If he can try to take a nice fight, that can be room for improvement there, but I am a little bit concerned for whether or not Newt's going to be able to pull through on the way out. Got one guy watching the stasis cell over there at 12 o'clock. And taking both 2 o'clock and the sort of inner 12, if you want to call that 11 or so. Pretty good. I'm noticing that Kenoli was just sending a unit up there, so he will actually find that base under construction and perhaps frustrate its development. A Zorki's Shroud behind the natural, yeah. It does kind of feel like Kenoli is playing, this is his main base, you know what I mean? There could be if we could do this in a proc gen kind of way where it wouldn't be really arduous and you wouldn't have to make like custom maps for everything. Playing with the main base, it being your natural, sort of like the result of a Bong Cloud, if you guys know that strategy, where you lift the command center in StarCraft 1 or StarCraft 2, or the Ministry in Cosmonarchy. That could be kind of cute as a fun game mode. What's not cute for Kenoli is this attack. This looks very, very ugly for him. The Bactyls are going to get engaged upon. The hot drop is good for some Hurricans. Oh, baby! We love the hot drop Hurrican. And that is enough to liquefy this Zerg army. He's got so much money in the tank. He's waiting for that Shroud to finish so he can build a bunch of Lakis, a bunch of Zoryus, but it's a little bit too late. If Newt just pulls the trigger on a push now, I feel like he's going to get very well and truly set up before any reinforcements can really hit the deck. 10 Zoryus immediately queued up. That means he actually doesn't have that many resources for a Lakis. And, you know, the other thing worth pointing out here, no swamp. So the Tet Zorikors are too late to help out as well. They probably won't even make it happen in here. Loading up the Hurricans. Nablime is so proud of Newt right now. And the move out is scouted. It looks like, by the way, this Mason was interrupted just at the nick of time there for that Ministry. So we will end up seeing a little bit of cheekiness and craftiness from Kenoli, who's trading a lot more evenly than I thought he would with Newt so far. Here come the hot drop Hurricans. A lovely concave for Kenoli to try to not worry too much about that, but even as the Zoryus arrive, there are no more Bactyls left standing. Just 2 off to the side, and they'll be mowed down by Mavericks, by Cyprians. GG. Newt takes the first game. It's a little bit of a beleaguered one, but map number 1 going his way. And guys, I mean, I'm looking forward to the rest of the series after that game. If that's the warm-up act, let's see what happens. Game 2 on Frosted Forest coming up. And we are back with game number 2. We've got Newt down here in the bottom left is our yellow Terran. And over here in the top right, the Pumpkin Zerg of Kenoli on his own map pick. Game 1, I actually don't know if either player is particularly satisfied with it, but I am. The audience probably enjoyed that game. That was a nice back and forth there. It looks like Newt will be going for the bio opener once again. No real surprises there. It's a little bit on the faster side. This is, of course, a map sort of like Acid Test in terms of rush distance, but also nothing like Acid Test in terms of actual structure. That map has not been a great success for I think a lot, viewer enjoyment and player enjoyment when it comes to the StarCraft 1 map port, right, or StarCraft 1 map version, Litmus. And Acid Test, I think, it plays pretty, like, it would play pretty similarly if the games were particularly similar, but obviously Cosmonarchy does have a lot of differences compared to StarCraft 1, so I actually haven't really made up my mind about it. It seems like a mid sort of map. In fact, I was thinking, what if you did spawn in your naturals? The only trouble is you'd have to change up the structure of the middle of the map because the rush distance would be too big then. But if you take that plan, that could be pretty interesting. Perhaps more interesting to us in the short term is that this is a hatch into pool for Kenoli, and the first unit is a Mason Scout. The Maverick, will it be moving directly across the map? It looks like right about now, Newt's going to be holding back. So this should end up working out quite nicely for our Zerg player. His delayed tech doesn't really bite him. He did go pool first in the last game, and so if Newt recognized that it was pool into Larvosk, that could provide him with some interesting advantages in the sort of mind game department, in the sort of build order department. The hatch popping within view of Newt is definitely going to surprise him. He's probably going to set up for some sort of anchor push to punish. It doesn't have to be that. Well, I say that. He's putting it down. And his military units are staying back for now, the Mavericks and Hurricanes, but they're going to spring into motion in just a few moments here with 2 more Mavericks on the way. So Kenoli's been pretty savvy with this sort of thing. He has played a lot of hatch first. This is sort of like a comfort build for him. A Circuit very early on is definitely required, and I don't know if I quite like this map for it, but I suppose if you station your Quas over here, you can try to block any run-bys while the Circuit helps you out. So as the anchor finishes, so too does the Circuit, and it will cover a lot of stuff here, with, of course, the Quas popping out here to see what's going on, and if they had been able to get here before the units did, that would be an interesting move for Kenoli. He would definitely have a bit of an advantage. If they had been able to snipe the Mason or something before any reinforcements came, it would be another story. More Masons have been pulled, by the way, so this is going to be a very committed push. Second Kagrant on the way. I think the anchor can hit that one from here with the Mavs, but he's only got 2 in there. Oh, no, not quite. Maybe he just doesn't have vision. I'm pretty sure he just, if it was like 1 hex over, it would be a little bit different, but obviously that's no longer allowed with that extra Kagrant finishing up. And so a lot of Quas are going to be banked here. He's adding more Larvosks in the back there as well, and so the liftoff is commencing. You aren't forcibly lifted off, ejected from the terrain if Kagra spreads. I have thought about that. That would be a kind of cute move. We could do that, but Zethrakor just here to see what's going on. Almost actually slips the net because there was a bit of a shuffle going on out of the anchors. And there we go, 2 more. I mean, this is a very heavily committed contain. Only problem is there's no ramp here, so that makes it a little bit harder to shove these guys off. But if you end up getting up to Bactyl Tech, you can outrange a lot of the units inside the anchor. So, definitely in terms of Mavericks, if Cyprians come in, it's a little bit of a different story, but it's still a possibility. I do like that Kenoli is already checking for potential drops. Going for the Vornath. If he goes for all the way up to the Apex strain of pool units, that could definitely work out nicely. And look at this. You can see that Newt is trying to play with a certain style here. Yeah, and it's going to get scouted out very early on. But to a degree, he doesn't mind if some or all of our military units end up going in this direction. Now, one of these anchors is actually empty, but it could be good for a sort of reaction. You know what I mean? To just load in after the other one dies. But, oh, this one never landed either. That's a big mistake from Newt. And so most of that ends up falling flat. His anchor play has left something to be desired, and only now will he start his ministry with almost 800 minerals to spare. 2 pairs of Nathrakors are not a bad shout in this situation, because you might end up finding that your opponent hasn't invested in anti-air. But he's actually abandoned this position. It's just the Mavericks. So Kenoli will sacrifice, 1 Quas to pick these guys off, and maybe he'll go after that Mason. He ought to have, but it is going to, subtract a little bit of timing from his push. And yeah, he's actually just going to go ahead and ignore it for now. Moving across the map. There's a lot of Mavericks over here, and even without anchor support, they should be able to deal with this. The one consideration is, are there going to be Vorvs? If we get to the point where there are Vorvrakors coming out, they can kind of just blow past all these defenses and run into the mineral lines. Nathrakor is kind of moving around as well. The Zethrakor's ahead of everything. A little bit off. Oh, he actually didn't finish the construction. That's hilarious. There you go. Now he's done it. And it looks like with the quad support, we are going to see a potential attempt here. Remember, you can't stim inside the anchor without getting out, so actually Kenoli's going to take full advantage of this and jump right in on it. Newt not stimming his Mavericks until the 11th hour, it feels like. Is it worth it to pop the anchor in that situation? Maybe. It kind of fills you a little bit with fear, but seeing all these quads drop, I think, is a good counteract to it. That Mason from before actually catching some of these reinforcements, at least on the minimap. Finally, it will go down, and let's check back in with the base. Double Larvos, double hatch. We got a macro hatch inside the main base as well. So, gonna go up to 5 larvae per 14. You know, it's a pretty good for 6 minutes. It's, you know, relative to some of the other players at the very least, will sometimes be struggling comparatively, but they'll be ahead on tech. You see Kenoli's minerals, though, and you know what I'm going to say. He could already have 3 more hatches being made. Calcure Lake queued up. Now that he's harvesting Vespine and making a lot of gnats, we can see what he's planning. The Calculusk spam is incoming. He just needs to be able to actually hold versus the bio push. And we started to see some Cyprians filtered in here, but really, the key detail is how many Hurricanes you have versus the Quasball. It looks like the Nathicors are actually going to be descending onto an earlier attack. I like the timing of moving the Quasith side. He is going to need to make some more. He is making 6 more pairs. And it looks like maybe Lyrilisks could also be in the picture. Of course, that is the other unit you get when you go for something like this. Pretty heavy amount of static defense being set up behind his natural line. But remember, you could just walk past this if you knock these 2 circuits out anyway. All right, let's see how it goes, because those Hurricanes are kind of wounded. At least the first one is, and so it goes down. The other one isn't even on the front line yet. You have to be very, very careful. And, of course, back over here, we already have Cyprians awaiting the inevitable arrival of these air units, and that is a disaster for them. The Quas also getting pulled out of commission, out of position. A couple of Masons might end up going down, but you need to get the hell out of Dodge. You only have 7 future Calculisks left. All of the resources going into Lyrilisks. This is going to crush the bio. It has to be said that the little distraction there, even though it looked like it might have been a little bit bad for Kenoli, looks like it's actually in his favor, because the Lyrilisк timing here, something that Newt is not ready for. He does not have the necessary tools. You need, Vestry for Shaman. You need maybe Savant or something like that to try to deal with these guys. But even they can struggle, for sure. Let's see if those hollowed glaives can find some fleshy targets. Zorkish Shroud on the way for a backup. We've got Vorvs coming, Zeth's coming. So we will have a very tricked out Zerg army here in a moment. A lot of Cyprians joining up with the fray, but I mean, Lyrilisks do beat them in a head-to-head fight, and there's more of the Lyrilisks for sure. So swarming capabilities have been achieved, it looks like. Feels like right about now, Kenoli setting up for some more Vorvs out there. I would love to see him actually push out and get a little bit of map control. He's got all his Nathicors patrolling the top left area, that little quadrant of the map, but now he's going to see that the army is still here. Well, you got to watch out. Yeah, you need to spread for the Cyprians, but now he can go for the engagement. The Vorvs are done. More units screaming in. Yeah, this is going to be a brutal bloodbath. All of the Cyprians going up in smoke immediately. And of course, the Lyrilisк count is still very, very high. Panic defenses are being set up. Anchors, will they get there in time? Lyrilisks move so fast. The Vestry is done, but no Shamans have arrived. All of those Nathicors now turning into Calculisks, and I'm sure they're going to be earmarked for the natural stockade for the wall. The bounces might end up counteracting. Cyprians and the anchors can help out a little bit. This is not looking too good for our Terran player. He can only has so many resources in the bank he could be using for other things as well. The Calculisk flock is now dispatched, and the range on those things, the Watchdog is not in a position to cover everything, that's for sure. 2 Lake is, 6 Zoryus. I like that Kenoli is holding back for a little bit. If the Cyprians get scrambled to try to deal with the Calculisk threat, then the rest of the army can move in. Otherwise, he can just wait until he's setting up Lake's defenses and stuff. Looks like he's actually going to pull the trigger now and see what he can do. Stockades are going to frustrate the pathing. The Hurricanes are beautifully positioned, but look, the Watchdog's going down. Only got 1 kill out of it. Whole lot of Calculisk shutting down mining at the natural, and the rest of the army was occupied with keeping the front gates from being burst through. So that's a lot of dead Masons, and Kenoli now has almost double the workers of his opponent, transferring a bunch into his preemptive third base. Those Lake is back at home right now, not contributing to the primary part of the fight. The Zoryus are moving across instead. We still have 6 Calculisks that can try to come through here, but there's ill time for this anchor to be set up. Well, I don't know. He is walking right into some Cyprian targets. It looks like he will still clean house nonetheless, losing 1 Calculisk. Cancel goes live on the anchor, or no, maybe it was just straight up full killed. Now it's going to be put down in the mineral line, and yeah, this is a dire situation for Newt. Ulgorg Cavern on the way. We are going to see some, presumably, some Ultra Cores. And even though Kenoli hasn't really restocked his main ground army, Newt isn't in a position to move out of his base. He will end up getting heckled to death by the Calculisks. What you probably wanted to do here is build like 3 watchdogs and lift them, sort of like leapfrog them over. Because if you build them right here, they can be destroyed beforehand. But the anchors, you know, it should help out a little bit. You can see how brittle those Calculisks end up being. A long time ago, I thought of making it so that Zerg units could root in place. And if so, they would have the same effect as Burrow for, you know, doubling regeneration. Sort of like Gargoyle root in Warcraft 3. But that would be a lot of implementation details. It probably wouldn't be too difficult from a technical standpoint, I guess, but it would be some tech cost, and most importantly, we would need model handling for them, animated. We are at to 7 Stockade by the looks of things, and no real other option for Newt just yet. I think if he's going to win this game, it would have to be a fairly lengthy experience where we're going, you know, at least 10 more minutes before he can get to, you know, a 3rd mining base, probably tier 2. It looks like the Calculisks are being split up a little bit. Watch for drops. We don't even have a star pad yet for Newt, and I don't know how soon he'll even bother going for it. He has been able to push out of his choke and onto the low ground. Anchor already in position to shoo away those calcs. And so he's going to try to poke at the extremities. This one's actually empty. So it's not bad to keep poking versus Newt. He is somebody who doesn't always leave units inside the anchors. He unloads them so that he can be as helpful as possible, so to speak. And yeah, some of these guys are already wounded as well. So is he going to do anything about that? The anchor lifting off is going to be pushed forward. Maybe just aura him back. But he's going to have to pay a lot of attention, and he has no mobile detection here. Besides, you know, he's got to deploy the shamans. He has to pay so much attention to actually take this fight well. Otherwise, he will just be overwhelmed. I think he's just been put too far behind early on, and this will be if Kenoli can finish the job, this will be, you know, one of the very few series that hasn't been, you know, a 3-0 or a reverse sweep. You know what I mean? Entering into August company, as it is such a rarity. Slowly deploying the shamans, leapfrogging them forward for detection. The lake is now coming up to try to do a little bit of damage from the south, and those circuits did their job. They isolated all of the Terrans. The Hurricanes, they can't get to the front line. They were split. They were spread out, and now the Zoryus, the Ultracores, they're on top of the Cyprians. The poor guys can't get a break. Cut down, surrounded, and there's too many Ultracores. The whole army wiped. This has got to be GG. He's going to do as much economic damage as he can, but the Burrow comes out anyway, and well, just like that, the Zerg army is going to move across the map. Won't even be necessary. Kenoli strikes back, has found some purchase in this series. Well, now we need to know what happens behind door number 3. Knife's Edge coming up. And here we go, lads. Kenoli in the top left of Knife's Edge just took Newt at least to 4 games, guaranteed. Minimum to decide the series. Newt is in the bottom left of Knife's Edge. He is our Dark Lavender Terran, and Kenoli, of course, the Pumpkin Zerg, making it easy on my color guesses. I love that Kenoli went back to his roots, hatch first. This map, though, I don't really know what the best Zerg opener is. I know it isn't hatch first. I know it isn't that. Looks like Kenoli knows it isn't that either. We're going to see some mech from Newt, though. So this is actually a really, already something to talk about here. This is a really interesting change-up because it is worth pointing out that Newt always goes bio on Knife's Edge, just about always. I haven't seen him play mech versus Zerg. And he loves this map versus Zerg. And he's had some really good victories. He's top-ranked wins versus players like Zeki. And so that's obviously a pretty big deal. Arbuz Videsh, his now fellow Class 1 Traveler, has also fallen prey to the Newt experience, and I know he's beaten Shambler when Shambler was playing Zerg on it as well. So, like, he does some very technical rushes. He does some nice, like, just solid macro-based gameplay. All sorts of cool stuff there. But here we see Kenoli going for Hydroth into Hatch, which is obviously a very unconventional build. But even without that, you know, with the Kagran coming down, that's going to be for a Larvos. He'll go for mostly a zero-core start then, because he wanted the Vespene to do anything else. And, you know, 2 Folk mech, I mean, what exactly does he want to do? Because he's found the hatch again. He knows it's going to be taking a little bit more time to actually pop, so he's going to make an anchor. I think I think vultures into some sort of Cyclops drop or something like that. Maybe even Goliath, the Goliath build from Nicholas, popularized at least by Nicholas. That could come in real handy here. And I don't think Kenoli's going to be ready for the mech curveball. So already an interesting setup here. He just goes ahead and starts laying the mines. And this was, of course, a Larvosk, not anything else. He's going to start heckling the workers. Is he going to get the burrow off? Indeed he will. Lost mining time, of course. Ah, I love the sort of bite back there, and he's going to get mined. But clearing the mine, though, with a worker isn't the end of the world, per se. But now that with the Iziracore here and the Anchor to provide more HP, this is going to be a little bit of a problem. Oh, especially since they're targeting the egg. Oh, man. Is he going to cancel it? No, not quite. Finding that closest target. The Iziracores are just going to try to absorb the damage if they can. More of them going to hatch. There's the burrow. More vultures slipping in. Interrupting that second anchor is absolutely paramount here. He ends up losing one of them. Rillarocore is coming as well. That's a big stun. It even reveals the one that's burrowed, so down it will go. Oh, Kenoli might be falling prey to the rush. The vulture rush. One of those anchors going down without a cancel. The other one being repaired. The Mason staying alive. Finally, it'll be focused down. Down it will go, but not into burning territory, that anchor. More and more vultures coming. Kenoli in a tough pickle right now as his eggs are being killed. Those are Rillarocore's for the most part, so I think he did have to actually cancel a yeah, he had to cancel an Iziracore there, but the Rillarocore's are coming. Move across the floor as lava. Start sinking their little spores into the anchor, and it should help the situation just a little bit there. But the anchor may be gone, but the vultures are here to stay, man. I don't think you're ever going to be able to beat back this many vultures. Iziracores are doing pretty okay at it, but this does look pretty dire. Now the workers are going to be engaged. A lot of Iziracores. A lot of Iziracores are being made. But the Larvosk is short work. No worries whatsoever there. He's going to have to make the burrow happen. Yeah, just getting right on top of them. This is a problem for sure. Newt hasn't been making too many units behind this, too many Masons behind this, but he's just got enough vultures that I don't know if it even really matters. He's at that point where he can double salvo the Iziracores down. He can just collect himself and come back in, start camping the eggs. Droleth's being made right now. Because Kenoli knows he needs more economy than what he's got. I think he might have just been overwhelmed, though. Well, the vultures are a little bit too close for comfort, it looks like. The burrow is definitely helpful. There's no detection. Mason production kicks back in. We've got 2 Cyclops. Can't afford anything else right now, so the Mason gets back to work. Yeah, feels like with this little pause here. Oh. Revealing with the Cyclops. Some of those vultures very wounded. Should have been focused more on the left side there, and Kenoli knows he doesn't have any more units coming. He was making workers, hoping against hope that it didn't end up that way. But we've got series point for Newt, not playing around anymore, throwing the mech curveball at Kenoli, no adaptation ready. We're going to map 4, and that is going to be Patadilla. Will Newt do it to us right here and now, tie us up in a nice little bow and finish the job, or is Kenoli going to fire back with a second win? I feel like either one is a potential possibility, but I will say that Kenoli has impressed me with his level. I feel like, especially since he hasn't been playing that much lately, his ability to come in kind of cold. Obviously, reverse sweeping Hanmano was not in my bingo card. But the fact that he's able to take a game off of Newt somewhat comfortably as well, despite the added pressure in the early game. He made Acid Test look pretty close. Even that Knife's Edge hold felt like there was something else going on. And Kenoli of the past would have died a long time ago, but he made a number of pretty reasonable decisions there. And even his gambit to make a lot of workers, I mean, it kind of was relying on the idea that the Iziracores would perform a little bit better. Yes, there's ways that he could have made them perform a little bit better. And yes, there were other decisions to be made. But overall, I'm just impressed with his, even in the losses, I'm looking at Kenoli like, damn, man, you're actually pretty good. I didn't think so. I'm still used to the meme status of Kenoli. where he was a little bit more of a jokester wild card, and he somehow managed to make it into all of those epic Acropolis matches. So obviously, even after his, when we go to his second Acropolis and he still makes it into the throne room stage there, at that point you can't really, what are you going to say? You know what I mean? He's a fixture. So I'm not even calling him meme status in recent history, but part of me is still used to his debut. I was having a little bit of a conversation about this with stream recently about how, like, if you just started playing and you impress me because you know how to play an RTS baseline and then you're able to quickly adapt and learn how Cosmonarchy works, then you're gonna get the most like accolades there. But if you start off kind of lukewarm and it takes you a while to scale up, it might take me longer then to abandon my first sort of impression of you and be like, oh, actually you're a pretty good player. And so maybe there's a degree to that happening with Kenoli, and now I'm just like, damn, man, you're actually pretty good. Like, it almost sounds like a backhanded compliment, right? But no, it's a legit one. Vulture playing behind the mines right about now. It is going to be mech for Newt once again, and it was a Larvosk into pool opener for Kenoli. And we'll save it at that with a 2-Falk start. Mason pocketed behind the natural, looks in for a cute spot to put down an anchor probably. Time will tell. Quaz will be moving, leaving the base. Not sniffing it out just yet. Take this opportunity as we have our first couple of units moving across the map at each other to say thanks for supporting Cosmonarchy. Thanks for watching the videos and checking us out and maybe playing the game a little bit. You never know. Joining our Discord server of over 1,000 homies strong would be a very cool idea. And yeah, if you want to support the project, you know where to do. Description box. Because that big mine hit is going to queue us up for a pretty nice little salvo. Vultures are probably not what Kenoli wanted to see here. And he is making a lot more Quaz where that came from. He's got very good larva production for this stage in the game. Very committed on the one base, but he can kind of fire back later on. He just needs to guard this ramp with everything that he owns. Like his life depends on it. No anchor in the front line either, so Newt's not going to be able to leverage that per se. And, this kind of reminds me of how Krankendow would have to deal with mech opens from Aoud. And he would always just build one of, most recently, he's building one of each tech node and an Ovoleth and just clearing everything out with, Hydra into Backdoll. You can get, like, Lakes out, stuff like that. So we won't be able to see how Knife's Edge would have gone had the, hatch first, or early hatch, rather, not been heckled a little bit there. But I am interested in what's going to happen from this position, because Kenoli, going for that Vornath, going for that Eskagant, I feel like with the gas cap, it kind of signals towards the Kalkir Lake play again, which obviously was pretty good on Frosted Forest. But if he's able to get up to a bunch of Lyrilisks, the mines aren't going to do much, the vultures aren't going to do much. I like the tactical repair from the Newt Mason, at least it justifies being there. Obviously does cost a little bit more resources. A Goliath is on the way, so that's pretty exciting. Exculpatory Mason, not able to find much evidence other than quads. And anti-drop static defense. Vornath going to finish up here. It feels like Kenoli's actually got a lot of stuff here, but what does he want to make with his newfound tech? Or is he just going to go ahead and double upgrade it? Droleth's Noveleth does come out for that Minesweeper. He's making a lot of claws afterwards. All this makes sense. He's going to start clearing the mines, and the vultures are hanging way back. Only one mine left. The vultures do come in to try to add a little bit of heckling, make it so this isn't exactly free. Of course, in this situation, Kenoli is very fond of just burrowing and letting the vultures kind of hoist themselves on their own petard, but Goliaths are sort of being banked back here. Mech is going to have a little bit of an easier time dealing with the Calculisks, but is that actually where Kenoli wants to go? He's got a lot of money floating again. This is something Kenoli does. This is the Kenoli special. 11 more Quaz pairs just got queued up. It looks like he might just be thinking about moving across the map. He made the Vornath, remember, but he's not making Naths. He's going to try to go for an expand, it looks like. Popped one of the vultures, another one very low, but it's in the back, so unlikely that he got auto-targeted. So just applying a little bit of pressure there, There's so many targets for the vultures to deal with. There's plenty of Cyclops and stuff back home, so this attack, if you will call it an attack, isn't really going to get much done. But the hatch is coming down. Perhaps what they want to get done is just sort of revealing that what the enemy comp is, get a little bit of a scouting report for the swarm. The vultures are a bit of a nuisance, but more than that, I don't think they're going to be doing too much damage. Mines have been laid at a few key locations. There's a vulture at 3 o'clock as well. Something a little bit over here towards the 7 o'clock location. I've been talking about Patadilla every now and then because it does still come up, but it's a very difficult third base type of map. So Kenoli getting up to his natural and trying to saturate it. He's making 12 Droleth right now and going for that Calcure Lake. Love to see it. Those Droleth will be there to start saturating the natural straight away. And if he actually, I think in this position, well, he scouts the move out, so he probably won't be doing another round of Droleth from the spot. He does need to centralize some kind of defense, and I kind of think he needs some sort of, maybe a static defense structure or something. Newt has a potential to just move across and kill him with a push. It's a lot of Cyclops. At what point do you feel like you have enough units to actually make that happen, though? And there's not much information gathering here from Newt. He's just sort of posturing back and forth. Vulture's going to come down and clear the last of the quads on the other side of the map, with the exception of the borrowed one at the 1 o'clock position. So, Calcure Lake is done. Where are we going from here? Can we make the Lyrilisks in time? 12 of them just get queued up. Probably wants to make even more, but I would love to see some Vorvs, honestly, especially when you know that there's Cyclops involved. So that's what he's doing. 10 Vorvs, 12 Lyrilisks. It looks like they'll finish in time, but it is going to be knocking on the doors. He's not going to have a lot of time to actually make this defensive move work. Lyrilisks seconds away. And when those end up finishing, that might end up feeling like a pit in the stomach of Newt. Vorvs are going to swing on in. Most of those have already been killed, actually. It was, I think it was just seconds off from being functional. There was more Lyrilisks that weren't involved either. And now we've got Matadors reinforcing the front. Goliaths are going to be so difficult to actually excise. Making 15 more pairs of quads. He definitely has the larva for it. Starpad is coming. If it's even necessary, we'll find out. Goliath's still holding the fort back at home in case there's some kind of attack. But we know all of Kenoli's hopes and dreams, all of its forces are dedicated towards this hold, towards this position. He needs to evacuate his Droleth, and he will. The quads coming in to try to do their best, do what they can, but what they do is not fight armor, that's for sure. Takes so damn long for them to do that. It looks like the initial riposte might be here. There's a lot of dead workers, though. Newt's scaled up his production. The Matador's roasting just about everything. The Lyrilisks can't morph in time, and I think he's just run out of steam at the final hurdle. The last bastion of Kenoli has fallen. GG. Newt takes the series. Some straightforward games in there, and some that were absolutely not straightforward whatsoever. But congratulations to our seed number 2, Terran. Looking a little bit shaky on his first outing. He was, of course, seeded into that match, but he has made his way into the semifinals. Guys, I look forward to seeing you for those semifinal stages. Of course, at the beginning of that, when I cast the first semifinal, I will show you guys the bracket, as I often do now. Thanks to, I think it was, again, I'm going to attribute it to Felixander, who I think left a comment saying as much, but shout out to you guys. You know, if your comments actually do result in improvements to the video from time to time. So, GG's. We'll be back for more Tribunal coverage very soon.